Have you ever met someone who knows everything about you, but you realize you know almost nothing about them? Today, we're diving into the fascinating psychology of people who don't talk about themselves, and what you discover might completely change how you see the quietest person in your life. Before we continue, think about your last conversation. How much did you talk about yourself versus asking about the other person? Keep that number in mind, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why some people's number is always 0. Here's what's interesting. In our oversharing, selfie-taking, social media-saturated world, there's a whole category of people moving in the opposite direction. They're not antisocial. They're not unfriendly. In fact, they're often the warmest people in the room. But ask them about their weekend, their feelings, or their dreams, and you'll get a masterclass in deflection. So what's actually happening in their minds? As a psychologist, I can tell you this behavior isn't random. It's a complex psychological pattern that usually starts in childhood and becomes reinforced over years. These individuals have developed what we call a protective self-presentation style, and it serves multiple psychological functions simultaneously. So, here are the 4 core psychological drivers of this behavior and how it works. First, emotional self-preservation. Many people who avoid self-disclosure experienced early environments where vulnerability was punished. Maybe they shared something important as a child and were dismissed, mocked, or had that information weaponized against them later. The brain is incredibly efficient. It learned that sharing equals risk, so it developed a defense mechanism, privacy as protection. This isn't conscious for most people. They don't wake up thinking, I'm going to guard my inner world today. It's automatic, like flinching when something moves toward your face. The psychological term for this is learned inhibition of self-disclosure. Second, the observer identity. Here's something most people miss. Some individuals genuinely find other people more interesting than talking about themselves. This isn't false modesty. Their identity is actually built around being the witness, the listener, the person who understands others. In developmental psychology, we see this often in children who grew up as caregivers. Maybe they had a depressed parent, or they were the oldest sibling in a chaotic household. They learned early that their role was to attune to others, not to take up space themselves. That role becomes their comfort zone, and eventually, their identity. Third, control through invisibility. There's a power dynamic at play that's counterintuitive. When you don't reveal yourself, you maintain control. You can't be judged on information you haven't shared. You can't be rejected for opinions you haven't expressed. You can't be hurt by vulnerabilities you haven't exposed. This creates what psychologists call an asymmetrical relationship dynamic. The private person has information about you, but you don't have equal access to them. Some people find this imbalance deeply reassuring because it protects them from the anxiety of being truly known. Fourth, perfectionism and shame. This one's subtle but powerful. Some people who don't talk about themselves are battling intense internal perfectionism. They believe that anything they share must be impressive, articulate, or worthy of attention. Since most of daily life doesn't meet this impossible standard, they share nothing. Underneath this often lies shame, a deep-seated belief that who they really are isn't enough. So they curate silence instead of risking exposure. It's not that they have nothing to say. It's that nothing they could say feels safe enough or good enough. Let me paint you a picture. You're at dinner with this person. You've just finished telling them about your stressful week, your family drama, your career concerns. They've asked thoughtful follow-up questions, made you feel heard, validated your emotions. Then you ask, but enough about me. What's going on with you? Watch what happens. They'll smile, maybe deflect with humor. Oh, same old stuff. Or they'll pivot. Actually, that reminds me, how did that meeting go? Or they'll give you facts without feelings. Work is busy, but it's fine. You walk away feeling connected, but if someone asked you 3 specific things about their inner life, you'd struggle to answer. This is the pattern. And here's what's happening psychologically in that moment of deflection. Their nervous system is detecting threat, not physical danger, but emotional exposure. And just like your hand pulls back from a hot stove, their psyche pulls back from vulnerability. Here's what many people don't realize. This protection strategy comes with a price. Chronic self-concealment is linked to higher rates of anxiety and depression. When you consistently hide your authentic self, you rob yourself of genuine connection. You might have many relationships, but they're all built on you knowing others while remaining unknown yourself. There's also a phenomenon called lonely in a crowd syndrome. You can be surrounded by people who care about you, but if they don't know the real you, the loneliness persists. You're connected but not truly seen. And here's the painful irony. The very thing they fear, rejection for who they truly are, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. By never revealing themselves, they never get the experience of being fully known and still accepted, which is the only thing that could heal that original wound. So what's the solution? For those who recognize themselves in this pattern, start microscopically small. Share one true feeling per week. Not a fact, a feeling. I actually felt nervous about that, instead of it went fine. Notice what happens. In most cases, the catastrophe you're bracing for doesn't occur. People don't reject you. They often move closer. This creates new neural pathways that say, vulnerability can be safe. For those who love someone like this, understand that pressure creates more protection. Instead, create safety through consistency. Show them over time that their inner world, when they choose to share it, will be treated with care. The psychology of people who don't talk about themselves isn't about being mysterious or playing games. It's usually about protection, control, identity, and unresolved pain. Understanding this creates compassion, both for others and, if this is you, for yourself. The quietest person in your life might have the richest inner world you've never heard about. And maybe, with enough safety and time, they'll let you in. What's your experience with this? Are you the private person, or do you know someone like this? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if this resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it.